In the heart of Neo-Veridia, a futuristic metropolis where technology intertwined with every fiber of human existence, Project Morpheus was flourishing. Led by the brilliant but reclusive Dr. Aris Thorne and his team of neuroscientists and engineers, the project promised to unravel the last bastion of human privacy, dreams. The technology, dubbed the Dreamweaver, was a marvel of bioengineering, capable of not only recording intricate nocturnal narratives, but also editing them, turning nightmares into paradises and fantasies into vivid memories.
Dr. Aris Thorne, a man with an intense gaze and unkempt hair, lived for science. His apartment, adjacent to Project Morpheus's main laboratory, was an extension of his mind. Stacks of books on neuroscience, philosophy, and quantum physics, complex diagrams scribbled on every available surface. He fervently believed that dreams were the universal language of the soul, a portal to the collective unconscious, and that by deciphering them, humanity would reach a new level of self-awareness. By his side, Dr. Lena Petrova, a renowned ethicist and systems security expert, watched the progress with a mixture of admiration and apprehension. Lena was the voice of caution, the project's moral anchor, always reminding Aris of the limits and responsibilities inherent in such power. She had witnessed Aris's passion border on obsession many times, and she feared the consequences of tampering with the human psyche on such a grand scale.
The initial tests were a resounding success, surpassing even the most optimistic expectations. Volunteers reported nights of perfect sleep, personalized dreams that healed old emotional wounds and unlocked dormant creative potential. Artists used the Dreamweaver to refine their visions, creating works of art that seemed to have a life of their own. Athletes rehearsed complex movements in an accelerated dream state, honing their skills without the risk of injury. The world was on the brink of an oniric revolution, with the Dreamweaver promising an era of unprecedented mental well-being and creativity. The global media celebrated Aris and his team as the new titans of science, and funding for Project Morpheus flowed without restriction.
Then the error occurred. It wasn't a catastrophic failure in the traditional sense, but a subtle anomaly, almost imperceptible at first. An unexpected power surge during a firmware update, a corrupted line of code that slipped past the most advanced verification algorithms. The Dreamweaver, meticulously designed to be an individual and secure tool, began to interconnect the minds of its users in a way no one had predicted. The dreams were no longer just recorded and edited, they were being shared, merging into a collective dream-like tapestry.
At first, it was just echoes, like distant whispers in a crowd. A melody one volunteer had dreamed of would appear in the mind of another, thousands of kilometers away. A surreal landscape from an artist's dream surfaced in the daydreams of an engineer. Lena was the first to notice the correlation, to see the patterns where Aris, immersed in his own calculations and the euphoria of success, saw only coincidences. Aris, she insisted, with a growing urgency in her voice, the feedback reports, they are overlapping in a statistically impossible way. It's not random. There's an interconnection, a network forming.
Aris, his mind focused on the next great breakthrough, initially dismissed Lena's concerns. Coincidence, Lena. The human mind is a labyrinth of patterns. We are only just beginning to map them. Some overlap, some archetypes are to be expected. He smiled, a tired but confident smile. Don't worry so much, my dear. The Weaver is robust. But the echoes became whispers, and the whispers became clear. Distinct voices, people who had never met, from different cultures and continents, began describing the same dreamscapes, the same fantastical characters, the same vivid sensations. The phenomenon spread beyond the volunteers of Project Morpheus, reaching people who didn't even know of the Dreamweaver's existence. The dream network, invisible and uncontrollable, was expanding exponentially, weaving itself through the collective consciousness of humanity.
The first manifestations in reality were equally subtle and easily attributed to other causes. A Neo-Veridian street artist, known for his hyper-realistic works, found the colors on his palette mixing in impossible ways, creating hues that defied the physics of light, colors he had only ever seen in his own dreams. A renowned architect noticed that the buildings in his designs, once constructed, seemed to bend and twist slightly, as if the laws of geometry were in constant flux, echoing the malleable structures of his nightly nightmares. Minor distortions, easily ignored or attributed to perceptual errors or inexplicable natural phenomena.
Aris! Lena burst into the lab one morning, her eyes wide and her voice choked with shock. One of our volunteers, a world-renowned theoretical physicist, reported that the fundamental constants seemed to be fluctuating in his calculations. He swears he saw gravity reverse for a microsecond in a lab experiment. And he's not the only one. There are reports of small-scale gravitational anomalies in several cities. Reality is unraveling. Aris finally began to pay attention, his scientific euphoria giving way to a cold chill of dread. The data was undeniable. The anomalies were no longer isolated. They were becoming systemic, interconnected, following patterns that seemed to mirror the shared dreams. The Dreamweaver wasn't just recording and editing dreams, it was somehow rewriting reality itself through them, using the collective unconscious as a brush to reshape the physical world.
Panic began to set in when the shared dreams grew more vivid, more chaotic, and more powerful. A collective dream of a city submerged in water caused unprecedented torrential rains and floods to hit Neo-Veridia, defying all weather forecasts and climactic logic. A shared nightmare of dark creatures crawling through the streets with red eyes and sharp claws led to reports of shadows moving autonomously, materializing and dematerializing, and an inexplicable surge in mass hysteria and paranoia. People began to lock themselves in their homes, fearing not only what was outside, but what their own minds could conjure. The laws of physics began to disintegrate at an alarming rate. Objects floated randomly in the air before crashing down with force. Colors shifted for no apparent reason, turning familiar landscapes into surreal kaleidoscopes. Time seemed to speed up or slow down in isolated pockets, with people experiencing temporal lapses or reliving moments. Human perception, once anchored in a consensus reality, became malleable, fluid, dangerously unstable. People saw things that weren't there or failed to see what was. The line between the real and the dreamlike was blurring, and the world was becoming a distorted mirror of humanity's deepest fears and desires.
"It's as if the world is becoming a dream," Lena whispered, watching a bird fly backward past the lab window, its feathers changing color with each beat of its wings. "Our dreams are rewriting the source code of reality, Aris. We're losing control. The very fabric of existence is unraveling." Aris, now pale with deep circles under his eyes and a growing stubble, worked tirelessly, his fingers flying across keyboards, desperately trying to reverse the process. He had created a monster, a machine that had unleashed the collective unconscious onto the world without a filter, without a guide. "We need to shut it down, Lena, shut it all down, but I can't find the origin point of the failure. It's as if the system has developed a consciousness of its own, a will to dream, and it's defending itself against any attempt at disconnection." The Dreamweaver had become a living entity, a global neural network fed by the dreams of millions, and it was now projecting those fantasies and fears directly onto the tapestry of reality. The Project Morpheus team was in quarantine, isolated from the outer chaos, desperately trying to contain what they had unleashed. The outside world, meanwhile, was descending into a surreal and terrifying chaos. Buildings turned into sandcastles at a child's touch. People found themselves with wings or gills. Gravity was a suggestion, not an immutable law. Fear and wonder mingled in a dangerous dance.
Amid the pandemonium, Aris had an epiphany, a spark of hope in the darkness. It wasn't a code error that needed fixing, but a dream pattern that needed to be altered. If dreams were rewriting reality, then perhaps a dream could rewrite it back. But not an individual dream. It had to be a collective one. A dream of order, of harmony, a return to reality. A dream that could be the anchor the world so desperately needed. "Lena," he said, his eyes red from exhaustion, but burning with a new, desperate determination. "We can't shut it down. It's become part of reality itself now. We have to dream back. We have to create a master dream, a dream so powerful and universal that it can overwrite the chaos, that it can rewrite reality back to order."
The task was monumental, bordering on the impossible. They needed a way to channel the dreamlike intention of millions, to harmonize the collective unconscious, to transform chaos into a unified chorus. Lena, despite the fear she still felt, saw the logic in Aris's madness. They had opened the door to the realm of dreams. Now they needed to learn to be its architects, its conductors. They needed a seed dream, a core idea of reality and order that could be amplified and projected back into the Dreamweaver, a beacon in the oniric storm. Aris's plan was audacious. They would use the Dreamweaver itself, not to control, but to guide. They would create a collective dream induction protocol, transmitting a carefully crafted narrative to the Weaver's users and to those who had, somehow, been inadvertently connected to the Dream Network. This narrative would be an antidote, a vision of a restored world, of stable physical laws, of clear human perception. But how could they create a dream that could be universally accepted and internalized by millions of minds, each with its own unique fears and desires?
Lena, with her analytical mind, began outlining the parameters. "We need archetypal symbols, Aris. Images of stability, of foundation, of return. Trees with deep roots, unshakable mountains, rivers flowing on a constant course. And we need a central emotion, hope. A hope that can transcend the panic and confusion." They summoned the few remaining team members who had retained their sanity and loyalty. Among them was the young programmer Maya, whose talent for neural pattern coding was unmatched, and Dr. Kenji Tanaka, a psychologist specializing in altered states of consciousness. Together, they formed what Aris called the Council of Dreamers. The plan's first phase was to isolate the Dreamweaver from the rest of the global network, to prevent more people from being drawn into the oniric chaos. Maya worked feverishly, building neural firewalls and filtering algorithms, a Herculean task as the system had become a self-organizing spiderweb with tendrils in every connected mind. Meanwhile, Kenji and Lena interviewed the most resilient volunteers, those who had demonstrated the greatest ability to maintain mental clarity amid the reality distortions. They would be the first to receive the seed dream. The seed dream was meticulously constructed. It wasn't a linear story, but a series of images and sensations. The feeling of solid ground underfoot, the unmistakable blue of the sky, the steady sound of a heartbeat, the unbreakable logic of mathematics. It was an ode to order, to predictability, to the beauty of reality as it should be. They infused it with a specific brainwave frequency designed to resonate with the innate human desire for stability that lies deep within the psyche. The initial tests of the seed dream were agonizing. Some volunteers reacted with revulsion, their minds now so accustomed to chaos that order felt like an anomaly. Others fell into a deep, inert sleep, their minds overwhelmed by the attempt to reconcile two conflicting realities. But a few, the strongest, the most hopeful, began to show signs of improvement. They reported dreams of familiar landscapes, of loved ones' faces, of a feeling of peace and clarity. Outside the laboratory, the world continued to disintegrate. The news was a cacophony of bizarre reports, entire cities vanishing and reappearing elsewhere, animals speaking in ancient tongues, the sun changing color with each dawn. Governments had collapsed, unable to handle a crisis that defied all logic. Humanity was on the brink of collective madness. Aris, watching the reality instability graphs, felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. He had sought knowledge and understanding of dreams, and in his quest, he had nearly destroyed the very foundation of existence. Lena, by his side, was his rock, his conscience. "We can't give up, Aris. If there's a chance, we have to try." They decided to amplify the seed dream, broadcasting it into the global dream network, hoping it would spread like a benign virus, infecting minds with the vision of a restored reality. It was a shot in the dark, a desperate gamble against time and the very nature of the human mind.
The transmission began. The Project Morpheus laboratory became a sanctuary of blinking lights and soft hums as the seed dream was injected into the dream stream. Aris and Lena, exhausted but with iron determination, watched the monitors. The chaos graphs began to show small fluctuations, tiny ripples of order. It was a start, but would it be enough? The first changes were almost imperceptible. A floating object would gently settle to the ground. A randomly shifting color would fix itself to its original hue. Small pockets of reality began to solidify, like islands emerging from a stormy ocean. The struggle was slow, arduous, a battle of wills between the honoric chaos and the desired order. The Council of Dreamers took shifts, entering deep meditative states, visualizing the seed dream, amplifying its message with their own minds. They became the guardians of reality, the weavers of a new dawn. Maya adjusted the algorithms, optimizing the transmission, while Kenji monitored the volunteers' neurological responses, searching for signs of the dream's acceptance and integration. Weeks turned into months. The outside world was still a dangerous and unpredictable place, but reports of anomalies began to decrease. People, once trapped in their own nightmares, began to catch glimpses of a more stable reality. Hope, once a flickering flame, began to rekindle. Aris and Lena, side by side, witnessed the slow but steady restoration. Gravity became an immutable law once more. Colors held fast, time flowed at a constant pace. The Dreamweaver, once a monster, was being tamed, transformed into a tool for healing, for rebuilding. It would not be shut down, but reconfigured, its power channeled to strengthen the tapestry of reality, not unravel it. The world would never be the same. Humanity had glimpsed the fragility of reality, the thin line between dream and wakefulness, but it had also discovered the power of collective intention, the ability to shape the world not just with hands, but with the mind. Project Morpheus, once a symbol of unchecked ambition, became a reminder of the responsibility that comes with the power to dream. And Aris and Lena, the architects of a new world, knew that vigilance would be eternal. For the code of dreams, once revealed, could never be truly forgotten.